Back here to jump right back into the action on the show. We're going to highlight a little bit here of this matchup between arguably the biggest matchup of this week's slate of week 2 games. We're going to look at the Bengals traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. This game is going to be great. I feel like it always is, or it's usually great because of the play on the field, right? You see so many good players like in recent games. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they're obviously still there. Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Kelsey, Mahomes, Pacheco, all those guys, we've been treated to seeing them go up against each other. But now it's certainly different for both teams, but in opposite ways, right? Kansas City got even better than they did last year, and they won the Super Bowl. Better at wide receiver, certainly. We're not going to see Marquise Brown for a while, but even still, Xavier Worthy, from how he debuted in the game last week against the Ravens. A lot to look forward to this team. A lot of excitement around the Chiefs and their wide receivers. But on the other end, Cincinnati also had a lot of changing, a lot of rummaging, a lot of shifting through their players, but they didn't necessarily add a lot of pieces. They got rid of a lot. Tyler Boyd moved on. He's in Tennessee. T. Higgins is still there, but we're not going to see him in this game. Joe Mixon is now in Houston, and Cincinnati looks like it's still in preseason mode, basically, from how they played against the New England Patriots. I know it is a trend now. It's kind of like this running joke almost that the Bengals, like they stink in the first couple of games. They're awful. Their records like 1-12 or something like that in the first 2 weeks, and people take it so lightly. And I know they're notoriously bad to start the year. They don't jump off at anything, but it doesn't necessarily make it like a good thing, right? Yeah, it's kind of funny that they start off 0-2 or just looking very bad, and then in recent years they've been able to overcome that. But again, it doesn't make it a good thing to start 0-2, right? I think that's what I feel like everyone's overlooking. It's crazy that they do that, but why not try to avoid doing that? I don't know. It's kind of weird how everyone sort of approaches it, but now this is kind of starting to become a rivalry a little bit, and that's why it is so interesting to talk about it because of how these teams have changed, how the Bengals are coming into this game on their usual bad note, whereas the Chiefs, I think, I was kind of expecting them to win last week, but I didn't expect them to look that good. They look like they're playing in late November or December the way that they started, and now it kind of, to me, puts them at such a bigger advantage over the Bengals compared to their last meetings, but that still didn't deject Jamar Chase and Cam Taylor-Britt, their defensive back, from speaking about this matchup and saying some very funny, starting this trash talk already between these two teams. Both teams have made it pretty clear that they don't like each other, and that's great for rivalries, but I feel like it reaches the limit a little bit when you're trying to talk trash. And you guys will see it here in this quote. Jamar Chase started everything off by saying, everybody knows that, bro. It's not if. We are the team to beat in the AFC, and we know it, and we got to act like it, and we got to play like it too. That was the main quote that everybody was picking off from. And with that, I love the confidence, right? I love the short-term memory. You're the best team. You're the best player in the world. I love the confidence. If you are good enough to back it up, it's all good. And Jamar Chase is certainly great, phenomenal of backing anything he says up. He can say he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He'll say it. He'll tell anybody that. A lot of people believe it. I think he's very good. He's up there, certainly top 2, top 3 for sure. And that's great. I love, when good players can back it up because nobody wants to hear anybody trash talk if they can't back it up. They just look silly. But Jamar Chase certainly has the capabilities of showing you, he's already shown everyone how good he is among the best wide receivers in the NFL. But it's not an individual thing, right? It's not like a Chiefs player called out Jamar or something like that, or somebody else brought up the fact that Jamar didn't look good in the first game or something like that. It's not like he's speaking solely for himself. He said that they're the team to beat in the AFC, and I'm not naive to the fact that NFL teams, players are not just gonna give in to saying like, oh, the Chiefs are way better than us. Like, hopefully we can win that game. No one's gonna say that, obviously, right? That's too extreme. This could be sort of a motivation kind of thing to motivate his teammates. Like, we can beat anybody. We just took a hard loss, but let's go. Let's keep it up. Let's go into Kansas City and beat this team. We're still the team to beat, right? He's saying that, trying to instill some more confidence in his team. The rivalry also, if you really don't like the other team, you're not going to give in to saying that they're better. Jamar Chase has made that pretty evident that he's not going to, go down to saying, Patrick's name or mentioning Patrick as the GOAT or anything. That's the rivalry bit of it, and it's all fun and games, right? But at what point is it okay to just maybe kind of tone it down a little bit, right? Not only this, because this is coming off of the back of different times that the Bengals have just chirped a little bit at the Chiefs and it hasn't really gone their way. The biggest one, obviously, being Burrowhead, Mike Hilton mentioning that, and just poking fun at the fact that the Bengals have gone into Arrowhead and beaten them and that they're uber confident about it, and then they don't win. They haven't won, I think, since those playoff games, and that was one of the biggest ones. Also you have Jamar Chase, like I said before, kind of pretending to not know Patrick or just refusing to say his name. If you guys remember, in an interview, someone mentioned Patrick Mahomes, and Jamar Chase said, who? Who is that? Patrick? And then that was pretty funny. It's going back to the rivalry. And then Patrick obviously wins the Super Bowl. He posts a picture of himself with his 2 Super Bowl rings. And in the caption, all it says was, that's who, right? Calling back to what Jamar Chase said. Also, on the NFL Top 100, Jamar just refusing to say Patrick is the GOAT or the best player in the league. He kind of gave him his flowers, but just like Voldemort said, he who shall not be named. It's kind of funny how it just keeps going on with Jamar and the Bengals. But, at what point do we just keep talking about it? Like the Bengals just came off of a big win and the media is still doubting the Bengals. It's not that situation at all. We have serious reason to believe that the Bengals are not close to or are not showing any signs of the team that they can be at this point in the year. And I'll get to that a little bit more, but also it didn't end with Jamar Chase. Their defensive back, like I mentioned before, Cam Taylor-Britt, was also asked specifically about Xavier Worthy and what sort of attributes, abilities he brings to this Chiefs offense. And Cam Taylor-Britt said, speed. That's about it. He can run straight, run jet sweeps, and just run straight. He can't do too much else, so that's about it. It's kind of funny. Again, it is funny how just blunt everything is. The trash talk, I love the competitiveness, especially for corners, right? This is the kind of thing you expect. Wide receivers as well. They're going to trash talk. They're going to give it to you. This sort of just I don't want to say unrealistic, but just for a lack of a better term, this unrealistic confidence, unwavering, unbothered confidence that they always have. But still, I feel like it loses some of its punch when you get upset in week 1, right? The upset the upset from the New England Patriots beating you in your home stadium, and still to kind of degrade Xavier Worthy and say that, all he brings is speed, like we're going to clamp him up or something like that, or we're not worried about him. Maybe they should be worried about him because their offense only scored 10 points and their defense only gave up 16, but they still lost that game, and the Chiefs are coming off of a great offensive showing against Baltimore, who was in the AFC Championship game last year. Maybe they should be a little bit more worried of how this entire offense can potentially beat them. I have them winning that game, like I obviously said in the last segment, but even with a loss, people will still believe in Cincinnati. I feel like they're going to lose this game, and people will still believe in Cincinnati. I probably would still. I'm not going to ride them off after 0-2, like I kind of alluded to the fact before. It is like this running joke, like I said, but I'm not going to... Joe and Jamar, you can't deny, are so special and so elite. They're going to beat bad teams along the way and have enough a bunch of times to, win some close games. But still, I'm worried that the expectations from this team, for this team with Joe Burrow and everyone always saying that when he's healthy, they make it to the AFC Championship game. I feel like those expectations don't line up anymore with the personnel that they have. And that's pretty worrying to me because Burrow is healthy with Chase, like I said, is still elite, but I don't. T. Higgins is not going to play in this game again, so I don't know why I'd expect any sort of different result from this game from the offensive side of the ball. Again, because Jamar Chase will be more prepared, so that's good. After missing a lot of training camp, he's going to look a little bit better, I'm sure, after some more weeks of practice, kind of getting more in the rhythm of everything. But still no T. Higgins, still Iosivas out there, Hawkins out there as the other pass catchers for the Bengals. So still no running game. And I don't understand why, going up against a better team, why I would believe that the Bengals are somehow going to have a different result. If anything, it's going to be more of a blowout, I believe, in my opinion. But also, I think just losing Joe Mixon is so overlooked and so huge for this team. The lack of a running game makes them so one-dimensional. And if Chase Brown and Zach Moss can't give you anything more than they did in the first week, you're really in trouble, I believe, because if you are a one-dimensional team, and that's still like pretty decent if you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, right? It's not totally awful, but not having T. Higgins to kind of back them up, Joe Mixon, like I said before, Tyler Boyd also gone, on top of facing a great defense that isn't scared of your running game whatsoever, it won't lead to many wins because no one's afraid of you running the ball. And if you do run it, they don't feel like you're not going to gash them or anything. So, no T. Higgins, they're going to have Trent McDuffie on Jamar Chase most of the game, I'm assuming. If at any point, Jamar Chase starts to get going, let's go put another guy on him or two guys on him. Then it forces everybody else to beat you, and I'm not sure these other receivers are capable of doing that, not to the extent of trying to keep pace with Patrick Mahomes, Travis, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Pacheco, and all these guys. It's not going to work in these games, especially too if your run defense is getting gashed like it did last week at home against the New England Patriots. It's not a good recipe if you're predictable on offense and your defense isn't top 5 to limit opposing teams to like 10 or 15 points or something like that. I feel like the game planning has to evolve to fit this new group that they have in Cincinnati, to kind of scheme them open, throw different formations, motions, shifts, everything to try and at least create an illusion or a diversion or something like that, to not make it so easy to predict when Joe's going to pass the ball and when they're going to run the ball. And when they do run the ball, we're not worried about it. So, the inability to kind of realize this and make changes, I think, has me seriously worrying and doubting, that they're just going to be the same old Bengals going back to before, right? Starting 0-2 potentially, everybody feels like they're just going to click it, but they don't have the same players to just fix it randomly and kind of get this offense going. That's the biggest difference for me. The biggest issue also, losing Joe Mixon is going to be huge for them. And how they fix it, how they change the game plan, I hope to see it at some point in this game. But that's my level of worry with the Bengals. And their trash talking, I'm sure, is not going to do them any favors as well, as if the Chiefs needed any reason more to be motivated. Don't poke the bear. Don't do it against Patrick. Don't go out there and give him any more reason to believe that he has to bury you or anything like that. You shouldn't have done it to Tom. Nobody should have done it to Tom. Now his predecessor, or no, not his predecessor, just the next guy up in the GOAT conversation, don't do the same thing, right? Don't give them this bulletin board material. That's where I think they messed up here, and I don't think it's going to be good for them on Sunday. So that's that, but we do have one more segment to get to. Just a quick injury update on some of the biggest names. T. Higgins I mentioned, also Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and Myles Garrett as well before we get into the weekend of football. So we'll be right back with that last update on the show.